Welcome, everyone. Thanks for attending today's workshop that we at the Career Center put on to help build some skills. In this case, some skills where you can utilize the Adobe platform. And to help with that, we've brought in two outstanding experts from Adobe, scattered across countries, in fact. Kirsten Nagel, who is near our neighbor in Ohio, and Jim Babbage, who's going to lead you through today's workshop up in Toronto, Canada, of all places. So it's super exciting to have you all here, and I appreciate your time. And Jim, I'll kick it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, and thanks everyone for joining. As mentioned, my name is Jim Babbage.
Trying to join a webinar.
Okay, so Tara, you may need to mute yourself.
Yeah, if you want, I'll. If you don't want to, then don't.
Or yeah, don't. There we go. Okay. I've just lost my train of mind. Okay, I'm a senior solutions consultant here at Adobe, and that means I get to support our customers, faculty and staff, students, as well as our our salespeople from an implementation and best practices perspective when it comes to Adobe Creative Cloud and Adobe Express. Adobe Express is what we're going to focus on today. It is a cloud-based tool that essentially can be accessed from essentially anywhere, whether you're on your desktop in a mobile browser or whether you are on your phone. We have a mobile app for it as well. So the beauty of it is the fact you can start your creative process anywhere. And by creative, I don't want you to get hung up on the word creative. Anytime you do anything, it's a creative movement, a creative action. So don't think I'm just talking about filmmakers and animators and photographers. We're all in the creative business. We all have stories to tell. We all have stories to share. We all have a brand, much like my shirts, that we want to get out there and get noticed. So we're going to look at a few different ways Adobe Express can help with that. I believe Kirsten had already shared in his chat pod a link that you can use to get quick access to Express. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to get started.
So I put a link in the chat pod just for all of you that were not on earlier. It will take you directly to your single sign-on for Temple. So if you have not been in Adobe Express before, you can just use that link there and it'll take you right to your login, and you can log in using your Temple credentials to get started. So, and if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat pod. I will answer them as we go or interrupt Jim. I'll also be throwing other various stuff in there along the way. So
great. Okay. So I want to start off with a little bit of an overview before we get into the meat of the matter. And I'm not going to dig too deep into this, but I will mention two things. This presentation I'm showing you right now was created inside of Adobe Express webpage. And this is one of the tools we'll be looking at today. And I want to focus on one sort of element here. If you leave remembering one thing about Express and also our generative AI, which is part of Express, these are the things I want you to remember. Adobe Express is a web-based tool set for digital storytelling and content creation. Right? It's a production studio. You can create web pages. You can create graphics for social media. You can do some basic photo editing. You can create videos and build out social media content as well. So there's a lot of different things this tool can do all in one place. And as I mentioned earlier, available to you in a browser without having to download any software at all. Adobe Firefly is a recent addition or integration to Express, and that is our very intuitive and very powerful generative AI set of tools to allow you to be able to create text to image content, to create templates that you can describe on your own. We'll take a look at that concept as well. Being able to do some very magical and powerful retouching if you need to, and even creating things like text effects where you're creating really interesting, realistic or organic fills for fonts, so to create for maybe creating a title and that kind of thing. So just think about that from that perspective. These tools are readily available to you at your fingertips, and the whole idea here is that they're also easy to use. I want to show you a couple quick things before we dig deep. And this is examples from other people because, hey, I'm the guy from Adobe. If I show you stuff I do, yeah, he's from Adobe. Of course he knows how to do all this stuff because that's his job. Somebody's paying him. Well, here's some work from students. that have used Adobe Express to help establish or promote their brand. You know, this is Morgan Zahner, and she's done a reflection piece on how her involvement in team sports has impacted her, and how it's the kind of skills she's gained through working on a team in a sport that she can translate or transfer over to the working world. Now, I'm not going to walk through the entire presentation, but you can see she's dropped in some great photos. Her resume is in here. She's even done an introductory video with her smartphone. She's included that. And she's done a really good job of incorporating text and visuals and video into her story. All right, and this is all done inside of Adobe Express webpage. A couple other examples about making changes, generating awareness. This is all about the Who Lives program. And I'm not going to, again, scroll through too much of this, but what I want to share is just how impactful this kind of content can be. The use of text, the use of powerful imagery to help explain a concept, to help generate awareness, to help promote or generate a reaction from an audience. So think about if you're doing a business pitch or sharing research. This is another way to make that content really approachable and globally available. One last one I'll show here. This is a student who is studying nurse practitioning, and what she's done is she's used Adobe Express to create her brand and use this particular web page she's created essentially as her digital resume. So she's not only talking about what she's learned while she's in school, but how she can apply it outside of school after graduation, and the kind of value she'll present to potential employers. So it's not just about saying things, it's not just about listing things on a resume and saying, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Here, she's actually showing what she's been able to do. You can dive deeper into her skill set. And the beauty of this too is because it's a web page and because the link that's created is perpetual, she can make updates to this as her skill set changes, as it evolves. And as soon as she publishes those changes, she's automatically giving everyone access to the most current version of her resume. So that in itself is quite beneficial too. Okay. So let's take a quick look at Adobe Express. I have this in a couple spots. Let me just go back here and go back to the home page. There we go. This is the main page for Adobe Express. This is the home page. There's a lot going on here, but let's break it down into a few different areas. First of all, I'm signed in. I can tell I've got my little picture in the upper right-hand side here. Right in the middle at the top, I can search my content for things that I've already created based on keywords, based on text that is part of the projects. But I can also search for different things. Like I can look for templates or photos. I can search my own personal libraries of content for elements I may want to be using. So for templates, for example, I'm just going to type in here infographic and hit return. What I love about this is we have thousands of professionally designed templates that make it much easier for anybody of any skill level, any creative bent, to get a head start on building out new, fresh content. If you're the kind of person that struggles with that sort of blank canvas syndrome where you look at that white screen and go, what do I do? This is a great way to sort of get the ball rolling. You may not utilize the entire template. You may only use certain aspects of it. It may be the font that attracted you or the colors or maybe some of the graphics. But you can use and pick and choose whatever you want. If I pick any of these, I'm just going to grab one of them just randomly and just choose to customize this. It takes me into the editing mode, and all of this content is editable and changeable, removable. I can do whatever I want here, right? So I didn't have to start from scratch. I've given myself that head start, okay, which is a really important component to think about. Okay, I'm going to go back to the home page here. Let's take a little more look at the overview. Along the left-hand side, I'm on the home area right now. I have access to my stuff. Everything I create in Express is automatically saved to the cloud. So I don't have to worry about saving it. Don't have to worry about what thumb drive I put it on or what folder I stuck it into inside of my computer. Express saves all of my editable files for me. And I can even organize them into specific folders of content. If you make a lot of content like I do, that can be really, really helpful. I can get into working with brands, establish a brand, upload my own logo, my own color scheme, work with that kind of concept as well. I can explore the templates and get some inspiration, as we saw earlier. I can even schedule content for social media. And of course, right down at the bottom here, because you can never learn too much, there's a link here to learn more about Adobe Express and how to do certain things. All right, back to home. We can get started by picking a specific social media template or aspect ratio. You can see here logos, Instagram square posts, flyers, TikTok videos. I can choose from any of these as a starting point for just an empty space, but at the right aspect ratio. So I don't have to think about that kind of thing. I don't have to know those measurements. I can utilize it from that perspective. I can even do something, this is brand new, so I'll just call it out. I can start a presentation. I can create a presentation style, so very similar to a PowerPoint concept, but I can do it all inside of Express. And there are a bunch of presentation templates that'll help me, again, kickstart my process if I want to. Or I can start with my own content. I can upload my own photos, my own videos. I can edit a PDF here. I can upload a Photoshop file or an Illustrator file if that's part of what I like to work in, and use that as a starting point for my own personal template. So you can get started in a variety of different ways. And I mentioned earlier about generative AI. Our sort of brand for generative AI at Adobe is Firefly. Firefly is really all about creating imagery from text, okay? And we do this in a few different ways. You've all seen DALL-E or Midjourney, ChatGPT, you know the general concept. You type in a prompt and something magical happens. Either it's words or images. Well, in our case, we're really focused on the image side of things. And so we've got our text to image capabilities here. We've got generative fill, which allows you to remove or add elements to an existing scene. We can do text to template, which is specifically designed for Adobe Express. So as we saw earlier, I can certainly search for templates, but if I can't think or I can't find the style of template I want, then I can actually type in my own text and have Firefly in conjunction with Express create my own customized template and give me choices on the type of template that I might want to work with. And then the last one here is that text effects I was mentioning, where you can add that organic textured fill to a font. Just below that are these quick actions. There's a lot of these. They're designed to be, as it sounds like, they're designed to be quick. 1 or 2 mouse clicks and you've done something. It could be removing a background from a photograph. It could be captioning a video that you've recorded on your smartphone. It could be animating, creating a voiceover narration with a puppet, or even something as simple as generating a QR code. These are all capabilities that are built in and designed to be easy to do. All right. Now, we're going to look at a couple different steps here. We're going to look at a couple different projects, and one of them is going to be about building a web page, but I want to start with something else, and that is working with my photos. All right. How do I take my own photo, maybe photographed on a busy background, and get myself off of that photo, and I'll put in a more contextually relevant background? So I've got a couple examples here. We're going to take a look at those, and we'll look at how I did them. And there we go. This is one, and I'm going to go into my grid view here. I have 2 versions here, two separate photographs, and there I am there, more full length and a background behind, and another one here, again, different context. In both cases, the original photos were a completely different background. We'll see how I built that out in just a second. The backgrounds themselves that are here were generated with Adobe Firefly. I didn't have to look up an image. I didn't have to find a stock photo. I found something or created something that was relevant based on a text prompt. All right, so let's go and do one more here. I'm going to go and create a brand new page. And I'm going to upload a photo. So I'm going to go to media here. Now you notice that sidebar changed. Once I went into editing mode, all of a sudden I have all these other things. It's a context sensitive sidebar. So I still have access to the templates we were talking about earlier, but I also have access to media, which is basically Adobe stock. It's text to image, as well as me being able to upload my own content as well. And you'll notice here, I've got photos, video, and audio. So I can pull in stock photography if I want, especially if I'm trying to practice things out. That's always a good idea. I can pull in video clips. I can even pull in music. right? So all this content is here for me to use. I'm going to start in photos and I'm going to upload from my device. And make sure I'm in the right spot. Let's just see if I get the right image. There's one of them. And that's not the other one. That was one a friend of mine did for me. See what I mean? It's all sorts of fun stuff here. So there we go. Let's grab this one. Just going to hit return. And it's going to upload into Express very, very quickly. Now it's got a sort of a busy background going on. I want to remove the background, add something new. How do I do that? Well, if you take a look in that second column, you'll see right away, because I've got that image selected, I've got the option to remove the background right at my fingertips. So I just tap that icon, and within a few seconds, background is gone. Now, if you look really close, you might see a couple little flyaway hair things here. So I can go ahead and fix those things. There's an erase option. So I can grab that and I can zoom in a bit by pressing Command plus on a Mac or Control plus on a PC. And what I want to do here is just make sure that I am erasing, and I'm going to use the brush mode. And I want the selection to be pretty soft so it blends well. And I'm just going to go and paint that flyaway hair. Something like that. And there's another one down here. And that's not too bad. Yeah, that looks okay. I'm going to zoom back out a bit. So I got rid of that problem. And now I need to add a background. So I'm going to click done. I've got my background removed. My next step here is to add in my image. And like I said, I could search for a stock image here. And let's say, you know, cabin in the forest. And this is pulling from Adobe stock. This is all created by professional photographers from across the world that contribute to our Adobe stock library. You've got access to utilize these images if you want, and there's some really great photos in here. If I see something I like, I can just click on it. It's going to automatically add it. I can change the stacking order with the layers over on the right-hand side, and then just scale that up. Get the result that I want, something along that line like so, if that's what I want, and just sort of reposition myself over in the corner. And maybe I'll take that image and I'll just flip it around by changing the controls here, about halfway down that panel on the left, flip horizontal. That'll just flip things around. So now I have a tree growing over my head, but at least I can see the cabin, right? So I can make adjustments to that if I want to, and sort of build that out. But if I don't see what I want, right, this is one way to do things. But if I'm not seeing what I'm looking for, I can go ahead and I'm going to delete that because that's easy enough to grab later on. I can use text to image to do the same thing, but I'm the one in control of the overall image. So I'm going to choose widescreen from the drop-down list. And I'm just going to scale this up so we can see it a bit better. And by default, these things always end up on top, but that's okay. We can change that order. And I'm going to go into my description area here, and I'm going to type in cabin in, well, I'm going to go with old cabin in an old growth forest with sun streaming through the trees. The more descriptive you are, the more realistic or more accurate your generation is going to be. So once I've got that, I can also choose what kind of content I want. I want this to be a little more photographic. So rather than art, I'm going to choose photo. And I can also make a couple changes here and control things like the theme or different stylizations. I'm just going to start with this, keep it nice and simple, and click generate. Within a few seconds, not only do I get an image that I can decide on, but I get multiple variations of an image. So take a few seconds, and then we'll see the first image show up. There we go. And I'm just going to drag it underneath my picture. Try that again. All right, I'll drag myself above the background. There we go. And if I click back on that image, I can see by clicking back on text to image, these are my 4 choices. There's the first one, second one, third one, fourth one. I kind of like that one. Or you know what? Yeah, no, I think this one. There we go. So I've done a really quickly created basically my own customized version. If I don't like any of these, I can ask Firefly to load more versions. I just click the load more button down there at the bottom of that second column. It'll create more content. I'm not going to bother with that right now, but I could, keep going if I wanted to. Now, in my case here, really what I want to do is do a little bit of touch-up work, okay, on that background image. It's a little too in focus. I don't want it to be just too distracting. So I'm just going to go back by clicking on that arrow at the top left, and I'm going to go to adjustments. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to lower the contrast a little bit. Darken the highlights a little bit so they're not quite so bright. Maybe increase the shadows, brighten them up a little so it's not too overwhelming. And then maybe just sort of reduce the saturation a little bit. And then lastly, I can blur the background. So I'm going to drag that up. I can control how much of that I want to do. I think somewhere around 30-ish is pretty good. And now I've done multiple things here. I've first of all uploaded my own image, removed the distracting background, dropped in a more relevant background that I created using Firefly and text to image, edited that image so it's a little more in keeping with what I want and a little less distracting. And then when I've got all this done, if I want to, I can go ahead and download this image to my hard drive. Okay, and download that as a JPEG file, always best for photos. Just click download, that'll end up in my downloads folder in a few seconds. And then I can use that elsewhere in other projects. So that's one way you can sort of start with an image. Maybe you've got a great photo of yourself, you got a great smile, great expression, but the background's kind of hinky, right? It's not really relevant, it's kind of distracting. You can upload that image, remove that background, and then drop in any background you want. And in fact, that's what I did with those other examples. If I sort of pan through these again, there's that one I did earlier. And this one, again, this school, this university, it's not real. In this case, it was a Firefly generated image. But if you've got a shot of your campus you want to use, you could probably import that and utilize that as well. So lots of different ways to sort of work with that kind of imagery. All right, I'm going to go back to the home page here. You might notice if you look down at the bottom of my screen, that project is going to show up right here. All my recent projects that I've been working on will show up in this little quick access bar down at the bottom. And that last one we did with the photo is there as well. So next thing I want to do is talk about building out a web page. Web design, web page creation can be a pretty intimidating skill if you're not comfortable with HTML and CSS and JavaScript and coding. One of the nice things about Express is it gives you a way to create web pages without having to code anything, but still make them visually appealing, make them engaging, and as we saw with one of my previous examples, something that you can share globally. So to get to that, I'm just going to click on the plus sign over in the upper left corner, and I'm just going to type in the search bar the word web. This is the fastest way to get to it. And you'll see two choices here: web banner, which is a graphic, and web page, which is going to be eventually an HTML web page. So I'll just choose that one. And we end up with this starting point. Okay, so we've got a big area here we're going to create utilize for an image for sort of a eye-catching image that I want to make use of. I can drop in a title, a subtitle if I want to. But the great thing about Express Web is that it pretty much guides me through the whole process. It tells you need to add a title. And at the very bottom, you see this little taskbar. Gives me three choices for that cover image. I can either upload a full screen photo. I can upload what's called a short cover, which is a photo, but it only takes up half the height. Or I can create something called a split layout, where my photo is on one side and my image and my text is on the other side. I typically go with the photo option. This is really personal preference more than anything else. So I click on photo, and there's my Adobe stock content again. I can pull in an image from there if I want to, or I can upload from device. So I'm going to choose upload from device, and I'm going to go to my downloads folder. And let's see, what have I got here? There's my photo. Well, why not? Let's use that. I'm going to open that up, and it'll take a few seconds. There we go. And there's that image I just created seconds ago. So I'm already on the way to creating a relevant, context sensitive presentation here. Now, this image could be anything. It could be more abstract or more conceptual. It's really up to you. But I'm going to go in here and type in my title. And a bit about Jim. And I'm going to click away. That gives me the ability to go back and grab that text and reposition it elsewhere on the page. So I've sort of laid this out in advance in my head to know that I need space on one side. So that's why I'm off to one side on the screen when I was creating that composite. I know I'd have space on the other side to drop in my text. Then all I've got to do, as the guide says down at the bottom, scroll to start writing your story. The whole idea here is we want you to focus on exactly that, on telling your story. We don't want you to focus on how do I make this stuff work, right? So you've got options here. Once you start scrolling, you're guided. Here are the things you can do. You can add another photo. You can add text. You can create a hyperlink button to other resources that are online. You could add an animated GIF. Not my style, but hey, you know, if you think it's going to work for you, by all means, give it a try. You can add in a video that's hosted on YouTube or Vimeo, or if you create your own video inside of Adobe Express, we'll touch on that today too, I hope. You can actually publish that to the web and share that link inside your presentation. You can create a photo grid, which pretty much is self-explanatory. It's a grid of photos that could illustrate a concept or activities you're involved in. And there are a couple neat little layout mechanisms here, one called Glide Show and the one we talked about briefly called Split Layout. Glide Show is a way to have a nice full screen image, kind of like what we see now, but where you can then drop in additional content. I use that tool a lot because it makes it a very visually impactful presentation, but it really comes down to what your preferences are, right? So adding a photo is kind of like you click on any one of these buttons, same process as before, wash, rinse, repeat. You can either upload from a device or you can search Adobe Stock to grab an image. And if I just go ahead and grab something abstract like this one right here, just to have something to show you, you can see that I can control how that photo is presented. Right now it's in line as a smaller image. I can have it fill the screen and add a caption. I can set it up as a window, which makes it more like a bit of a visual divider. I can make it go full width if I want to, and I can even change the focal point. And I can do that with the cover image too, and I'll tell you why that's important in just a second. Or I can replace the image or just plain old delete it. I'm going to leave it in place for now, but I'm going to go back up to this image because there's a lot more going on here. If I tap on my cover image, you'll see I have some of the same control. One of them is focal point. And I want to point this one out because what this allows me to do, if you take a look in the upper right corner, just below the save button, it allows me to control what's going to show up if my web page is being viewed on this. Okay, so in my case here, if I left it at where it was originally, the default, it's just kind of like, okay, there's a cabin and some trees. What's the point? So in this case here, I can shift this over and have more of my face in this case show up, or something else that's more relevant. So I know that I'm going to get some important information, even if I'm viewing this on a mobile device. But I don't have to code any of this, just drag and drop. All right, so I'm going to scroll down a bit. There's my little divider, and let's take a look at video. And I'm going to go, I've got YouTube open here, and I'm going to go into one of my favorite individuals here. Claudio Zavala is a great creator of content. And I'm going to just grab anyone. He has some great Express content, which is one of the reasons I wanted to share this. I can go in here and choose share. I can copy that link. And if I go back to my page, I click on that plus sign, choose video, paste in that URL. This is as close to coding as you get. And there is his video. So if I've got my own video content, maybe I've created my own little video cover letter and I've pushed it up to YouTube or Vimeo, I could take that share, that embed link, paste it into my Express page, and it's going to be there. Now it won't play right here first. It would be something where you'd click on it, it would go full screen, then you tap play. But the great thing here is that I've got that ability to incorporate this kind of content really, really easily. And I do this a lot if I'm creating content for customers where I want to supply videos, maybe how-tos or sizzle reels of content. I don't have to upload any of that content. I don't have to store it on my hard drive. I just have to find it where it's hosted, and provide that URL, and I can incorporate that content right there. Now, again, anytime I want to add more content, I just click on the plus sign. There's my option for a hyperlink. I can select that, and I'm going to type in here more about Adobe, because hey, why not? And then http://adobe.com. This could be any hyperlink, and I'll just center that up and save it. And now I've got a hyperlink. Now, when I'm in this editing mode, I can't actually test any of this, right? This is just me creating the content. So if I want to see how it's really going to look to an audience and interact with the content, I need to go and preview that content. And here in the upper right, you'll see an icon that looks like a little eyeball. I click on that. This is going to load it in sort of what I call audience view, right? This is how someone viewing this website or web page would see the content. So there's my title. If I scroll down, you notice the big gap that used to be between the title image and this divider image is gone. And then there's the link for the video. If I click, it's going to go full screen. I can play it if I want to, or close it. And then there's that hyperlink down below to go to Adobe. I can just tap on that, and it's going to take me to Adobe's website or whatever link I've actually decided to use. Really, really easy to do. And when I'm done previewing, I can just close that and come back to my main editing page. So I can keep editing, I keep building out this content. I'm going to add a little bit of text and just keep it real simple here in my first heading. And once I've typed in some text, I can select the text. I can change the format. I can make it a big heading, heading 1, or a secondary heading, heading 2, even turn it into something we call in the print industry as a pull quote, which sort of makes a small piece of text or a sentence stand out. I could even turn it into bulleted or numbered text, numbered lists if I want to. And if I'm just on plain old paragraph, I can set it to be bold, italic, even attach a hyperlink to the text or change the alignment. Now, in my case here, I'm going to go back to H1 for that. All right. Now, let's say that I'm in the process of building this out. I've sort of previewed it. I kind of like where things are going. What do I do if I'm wrapping this up, if I think I'm finished and ready to go? One of the great things about Express is you can publish this anytime. You don't have to wait till you're done. You can publish it on the fly. And then you can share the link out for other people to review it, maybe get some feedback, or you can just sort of push it out to be published so that you can see it live as well. And the process for doing that is right here under this share button. So if I click on this, I'll see 2 options: invite collaborators and publish to web. Now, invite collaborators, if you're working in a team environment, if it's a team project, you as the creator of this project can invite other people to share or incorporate their content into your project. So as a one team, you've got one sort of voice here, one presentation piece to share. As the creator of that content, you're the one in control of publishing the updates. Your teammates can add content, they can delete content, but they can't publish the changes to the live page. That's only something that you can do as the original author of the project. So if I choose invite collaborators, it's pretty straightforward. I just type in an email address, my good friend Mark Caruso. I can put his name in there, and I can determine whether he can edit this page or whether he can just view it for feedback purposes. I can add a little message saying, hey, Mark, can you check this out or whatever? Or likely if you're working in a team, you've already established who's going to be involved in it. And then all I've got to do is click invite to edit. He'll get an invitation through email and through his Creative Cloud account. He can accept that invitation. And once he does, he'll be able to work on this project as well. Now, the only caveat to the collaboration option in the web page component is you can't have 3 people working on the project at once. All right, it's something we are resolving, but right now, as it stands for the web page component, only one person can be actually actively in the page as an editor at any given time. So that just means you have to, as a team, communicate to say, okay, Fred, you're going to be editing right now. Text me when you're done and you've left the page so I can go in and add my stuff, right? So just keep that in mind. The other option here under share was publish to web. So I'll just click on this and I'm going to give this a better title. A short bio, there we go. And I always mistype something when I'm talking. I can add credits in here. If I do use Adobe stock images, those credits will automatically be included. But if I want to credit anybody else on the team, I can add that content in here. And then literally all I'm going to do is choose create link. And within seconds, this project is live. Now, once we've published it, there's a couple things to be aware of. The link for the published page is right here. Okay, I can copy that to my clipboard, which I just did. I can also share that by launching Facebook or Twitter, X, LinkedIn, and so on, or through email, or even get an embed code for the published link. But I just copied it to the clipboard for now. And I'm just going to go and click on the plus sign in my browser window, add a new tab, and paste. So not only did I publish it, it's immediately live. There's no lag time from that perspective. It takes a second or two to load, and there we are. This page is live, all right, as it stands at the moment. It needs a little work, needs a little development, but you get the general idea. This is how it's going to look to any audience member. And I could also, paste this into my browser on my phone and view it from there as well and see how it's turning out from that perspective. All right. So I'm going to go back to my project. One of the things I did not need to do, as I mentioned earlier, as I was creating this, I didn't need to save this at any time. It's automatically being saved to the cloud. In fact, if I go to my title again, you take a look before I do this, take a look up here in this black bar towards the left-hand side, you'll see a little cloud icon. Now keep an eye on that. And I'm just going to add in my last name. And if you look really quickly, you might see a little icon appear over the cloud. It's automatically syncing those changes to the cloud. Okay, so it's saving what I'm doing on the fly. What it's not doing, it's not publishing those changes for me automatically. So if I go to the share option over here again, I'll see we've noticed you've made some changes to your project. Publish changes. All right, so anytime you make updates, you'll want to publish those changes. The beauty of this, though, is that the web page link doesn't change. It stays consistent. It's a persistent web URL. So even though I'm building this project as I go, if I gave the link out to somebody to give me some feedback, and I said, okay, I've made the changes you selected, have a look, they can just go to that same link and it'll still be available. So if I look at the page, there's the original, what we looked at a minute ago. If I refresh this, it'll reload with my new title. Okay, so it's all a matter of when you make changes, make sure you publish the changes to the web. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how a web page can be built. Now, it is a single web page. You're not building a whole website here with lots of navigation to other pages inside of this website. You're building a single sort of long form web page. You can create links to other spots in the page if it's a really, really long page. And what I mean by that is I'm just going to pop over to this example. This is sort of an ongoing publication of mine listing what's happening with Adobe and AI. As things get released, I try to share that here. This is a really, 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 really long page. All right. To have to scroll down to the area you're interested in, it's the 21st century. We don't want to scroll all the time. My fingers will get tired, right? So what I can do is I've actually built in some navigation within the page. So I built out this table of contents so I can jump to Adobe Firefly. Actually, I could jump to it if it was actually the web version and not the editing version. So I'm just going to copy that and paste that in. And it'll take a second to load because, like I said, there's a lot of content here. But I'm basically able to create internal navigation. Now, it's a bit of a, I'll be honest, it's a little bit of a hack to make this work. We're working on a better way to do this, but the general process is you can link to other headings in your document. So if you use heading 1 or heading 2 anywhere in your document, you can turn those into what we call anchor links, right? So let's see if we can come on there. There we go. Oh, okay, it's a little sluggish today. It was fine before, but we'll let that sit there for a bit. Let's take a quick peek at my original page. How do we do this? Well, you know that if you remember correctly, we did a heading here, all right? And that is one of the areas where I can actually create a link. Now, I need to do 2 things. This is a 2-step process. I need to first author the page and publish it. And then I need to go to the published page. If I scroll down, move my mouse over that heading. If you look really close, right beside the text, you'll see a little icon show up. That's the ability to copy the anchor link. That just tap that, it copies that link to my clipboard. And then if I go back to my editing page, I'm just going to go down to the bottom of my page here, and I'm going to create a button. And I'm going to paste in there the link, and I'm going to type in here back to top. Right now, again, this is the kind of thing you do if your page is getting long and you want people to be able to easily navigate. If it's a very short page, you won't need to do this, but I just wanted to show you it's a bit of a power user tip. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then if I publish those changes, publish changes, and hop over to my original page. This is the audience version. Refresh, reload the page. I scroll back down. Once that loads up, there's my back to top button. And if I tap it, it would normally take me back to the top. I've been having a lot of issues today with my browser. So it is actually showing me the correct link, but for whatever reason, it's not behaving itself. Let me see if my other page loaded. It did. So give you an idea of how this should work. By clicking on those table of contents, it actually scrolls right down to that specific area based on that heading that I've got there. And I've also done, as we saw earlier, as I was trying to grade for you, was the ability to go back to the top. So if I scroll down the end of this chapter, here's my back to top link. It'll take me back to the table of contents. So if you have a really long page, this is something you can create and do. If your page is, 2 or 3 screens worth of scrolling, it's probably not worth going to this extra step, but it is kind of handy if you have a lot of content you want to share on that specific page. Okay. We are at 4:45. I'm going to stop for a second, take a drink of water, and see if
It's
there
an
are any
oddly
questions.
quiet crowd. There's no questions going on today.
I'm just amazing everybody. They're just shocked into silence. That's got to be it.
I think. When
Or
would they?
they're asleep or eating noodles. They could be eating noodles.
It could be eating noodles. When might they use a web page type of experience? What are the different use cases maybe that
Good
you've
question.
seen?
I've seen students use it for creating a digital resume. I've seen it to create, students use it to present research they've done, to help establish their brand. I know I use it. I've seen faculty use it to do syllabi or to create tutorials. Basically you're only limited by your own imagination. It could be completely for personal use, but for business use as well. Like, say you've had your job interview and you want to follow up the next day or that afternoon with a thank you letter saying thanks for your time. Inevitably in a job interview, there's never enough time to go through everything. So you could follow up in that thank you letter with saying, and by the way, we talked about these topics in the job interview. I thought I'd share with you some of the things I've worked on where I feel, I could be a benefit to these types of processes in your, at your company. And then, as you saw how quickly we put together a web page fairly fast. You can be very responsive and get back to your interviewer with some very context relevant information that you just didn't have time to go over in a job interview.
I've also seen that in those cases where faculty are open to it, where students have used
Yes.
this in place of like a Word document to write papers and such.
Exactly. It's a much more engaging presentation. You think about, there's only so much excitement 12 pages of double-sided typed text can produce. I mean, the prose could be amazing, but it is still just text. And being able to flesh that out or embellish that with visual content, with video footage, all these things tied together with the written word can make for a much more compelling, engaging document. And the beauty of it is it's web hosted, so you're not limited to just sharing it with your professor, and you don't have to make multiple copies or send out multiple attachments. It's already up online for people to view.
I'd imagine too that if students have flyers that they've got to make for any additional organizations they belong
Yep.
to, or have to do social posts or any type of stuff, that this would be super helpful.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen again for a second. You brought up a really good point. And I'm going to go back over to my main homepage. There we go. I'm going to go back home. And we talked about this with the templates here. And I'm just going to go ahead and choose back to my homepage and text to template. As we saw, we can search for templates, but in my case here, I'm going to do guest speaker. Can't type guest speaker on economic. Oh man, I cannot type today. Development event. And when you are doing things with text to image or text to template or anything generative AI, spelling is important. So make sure you double check what you've got. I'm just going to type in, I've got guest speaker on economic development event, click generate. And because of the keywords I've used in that description, Firefly and Express are going to create customized templates that I can start with. So if I can't find what I'm looking for in the template, I've got the ability to generate that kind of content using artificial intelligence and generative AI. And there we go. There's 4 potential templates that I would never have thought of creating in this manner. I may like some of them, I may hate others, but it does give me a chance to get a sense of what might be interesting. And much like we saw with the other template example, I can grab any one of these, click on it, and it's automatically going to go into editing mode, and everything that's there will be editable. I can change the text, replace the photos, add additional graphics. It's really up to me what I want to do. So it's another sort of great way to sort of experiment with and try to build out like social media content, graphics, flyers, posters, and so on. And it does take a few seconds because it is rendering this thing from scratch. It didn't exist 5 minutes ago. So there we go. All this content, selectable, editable, changeable, and I can basically build on from there.
Thank you so much, Kirsten and Jim, for your time and your expertise. Clearly, this is a robust, powerful platform, and I appreciate you explaining some of the functions and features of it to our students. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.